Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. Today is another challenge over at the Counterfeit Kit Challenge, and as part of my design team duties, I like to play along whenever I can, so I've got a layout process video for you today featuring this challenge right here, which is to tell an everyday life story. And what could be more everyday than having to eat every day? And that's the story I'm going to talk about today. So let's get into the crafting. So here's the photo I have. It is my son likes to make fried rice, and when my husband and I got home from a camping trip, we were exhausted, but he had leftover rice and he offered to make us dinner, so that was really nice. I have pulled out my counterfeit kit, and I have some extra bits and pieces in here from another project that I've done this month based on the kit inspiration. I'm not sure if I'll use those extra bits, but I have them close by just in case. But of course, the first order of business is to choose papers. And as I was laying this photo against some of these cut apart pieces, which are dated, I found one that I liked, and it had a phrase on it that says, "Don't want to forget." And I really like that phrase, and I'm going to end up using that as my title. So as I sort through all the other papers, I'm trying to pull out bits and pieces that I think can work. Now, I like the camera, and I liked the little potted plants because that kind of reminds me of home. But they're both white on white, so I want to make sure that I add in some contrast of color. So I pull out blue and red also. There's a little bit of red tones in the photo. And then I'm going to go with blue because there's some blue in the background of the photo, and I've got blue in my potted plant paper, so that all will tie together. Now, I want to avoid putting white on white as I do this, and I want to build a column of layers of pattern paper. I had no idea what I was going to do before I started this layout. Sometimes I have a vague idea of the design, and sometimes I do not. This was one of those times where I had no idea where I was going until I started pulling things out of my kit. And then as I pull these layers and I realize as I pull the papers and I realize I want the contrast between the papers, that leads me into a layered look. So this column layer will be offset with kind of a diagonal flow with embellishment and journaling. So I've got all my bits and pieces down. I did ink the edges. My ink went a little wild with my photo, and my printer is no longer working. So I couldn't reprint the photo right now. I have to print it out in the future. So I'm moving on to embellishing, and this will be a little bit of a challenge because I need to make sure that I don't permanently glue anything down to my photo because I still want to be able to get that out. I did use temporary adhesive to glue it down for now, and I will be able to replace it later when I can print a new one. I had this very old date set of circular stickers in my stash, and I've been trying to use them up. A lot of the theme this month was based on the calendar, and so I have a lot of those kind of pieces in here. Now I'm looking for where I want to write my journaling. I thought about just writing it diagonally on that red and white striped paper. I think that would get a little too busy, although I'm known for doing too busy layouts. But in this case, I'm going to make it less busy and find a journaling card. And then I found this lovely little heart card that I can back with it, and it happens to be red and blue, so that works great for my color scheme. So just a little nitpicky trimming down here, and I'll be ready to go with that. And then just getting it to align just right so it's overlapping the photo a little bit, but so that it is not glued completely down to the photo. And as you can see on the back of my hand, I pulled out a whole bunch of other embellishments, but I'm wanting to de-stick them so that when I add them, I can overlap the photo without them sticking down. Another tip to de-sticking is to use an anti-static powder for heat embossing and just rub it across the back of your stickers so that they de-stick. And I will add back adhesive to the only spot where it needs to be so that I don't ruin that photo or permanently stick it down, because I do like to overlap elements. I think it makes things more dynamic when things are touching and overlapping and offset, and so that's how I tend to build my clusters. Now here I'm putting glue on half of this brad piece so that it can stick without attaching to the photo. So I'm attaching all of those pieces to the underside of the Take Note puffy sticker instead of straight down to the photo. All right, I have got just a few more embellishments that I am going to add on here. Normally I wouldn't put birds on a layout about food. I am learning to step outside of that box a little bit, and because we were camping, I'm gonna use birds because it reminded me of camping, and that helps me step outside my box a little bit so that the birds still make a little bit of sense on this layout. All right, I'm going to finish off my embellishment clusters with some enamel dots, also kind of drawing a little bit more attention to the title itself with the larger of the enamel dots. And that will wrap up the layout for this time. So here is a view of that, and then I will leave you with a few still photos so that you can check out these close-ups. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you appreciated seeing this layout come together. I had fun making it, and I really like this layout design. I should be back again really soon with another crafty video for you, in fact, on Monday. So I hope you will join me then, and until then, I hope you have an artful day.